What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. As always, bring you incredible guests from all over the world, so sit back, relax, and tune in. My next guest is actually a returning guest. He is a first responder for almost 15 years before becoming a life holistic health coach, founder of First Responder Fathers, helping first responder men become elite dads and husbands. Joel is a best-selling author of the book, Ignite, a guide to holistic weight loss, feeling confident in your body and unlocking your full potential. And he is also a fellow podcast host of The Joel Evans Show, where he interviews the top health and mindset experts in the world. Welcome, Joel Evans, to the show.
Hey, it's great to be back, Deanna. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my gosh. I'm excited for this conversation. You've got a lot going on. So when you were on before, we were just talking a lot about, you being a coach and just the holistic approach that you have to things. And since then, I have seen you on a lot of news channels. I am like, can share that with the audience and update them from what you were on a crusade, man, and I was loving it.
Yeah, so last time we talked, and, I don't even know if I shared my background with you, because I'll be honest, I was scared to tell people who I really was, believe that or not, being label free. But I was scared to tell people that I was a first responder or a police officer, because police for the last couple of years were just being thrown under the bus. They were just evil. And I was afraid that being an influencer, someone who's out there trying to spread good stuff, that I would be judged for having been a cop, and maybe somebody would say, oh, well, he must be a racist. And I didn't want that to be the stigma. So I never really told people that I did that. And the second thing that was going against me was in October 2021, I was a San Francisco police officer. And within a month, I was told I had to get an experimental product. I think everybody knows what that is now. Yeah. I was told I had to get an experimental product in my body. And if I didn't get this thing, I was going to be fired. Yeah. And I chose the ultimate path. And I said, I'm not going to do it. And I said, I guess you're going to have to fire me because I'm not doing this. And by the way, this is absolutely illegal. I had a religious exemption that they denied, and there's a lawsuit and everything going on. But the bottom line is I got fired. I got let go from a job of almost 15 years, and I was making almost $200,000 a year as a police officer in California. I was the sole provider of my family. I have 2 young boys, 9 and 6, and a wife who doesn't work. She takes care of the boys. And so I was left at like, what am I going to do? How am I going to make income? We just bought a new house and all these things. And I had been building my coaching business in the background for a while, as you know, and I just thought, man, this must be a sign from God or source or whatever you believe in. I'm just going to go all in. Like, I'm going to go all in my business and my podcast, and I'm going to literally, as they say, burn the boats. If you want to take the island, you got to burn the boats. And that's what I did. I burned the boats. I cut off my old life, and I dove into this new endeavor. And that led to all these things, such as being on Fox News, because they were actually looking for someone to talk about some of this. And I said, well, I have a story for you. I got fired. Here's some of the issues I went through. And Fox picked up the story. It was a stroke of luck, being at the right place in the right time. And then, of course, just a lot of hard work to get there. I'd been trying to get my story out in mainstream media for about 2 years, and nobody picked it up until this one person said, I'll run this story with you. And that led to multiple appearances on Lawrence Jones' show, Neil Cavuto, and Fox and Friends, and some of the others.
Well, good for you, though. I feel like what a testament for like standing firm in your beliefs and having the courage to just, listen to yourself, right? Because I didn't take it either. And as you know, my husband, he is a first responder, and he had a lot of conflict around doing it or not, because he didn't believe in it either. I mean, he didn't want to lose his job. And I said, I'll support you no matter what you do. And so he ended up getting it. And now here we are, a couple of years later, and look at all the lawsuits that are coming in, and they're being told they got to rehire everybody and give back pay. And it's just like, what an exercise in just like what we should and should not do. I mean, I really feel like a lot of people should have stood up to what they believed in instead of giving in.
The truth of the matter is, you're right. And I was very compassionate, and I still am. Listen, I have suffered for 2 years. I have suffered. I'm not making what I used to make. I mean, it has not been easy. I want people to understand that. It was a choiceless choice for me. But, and I have a lot of compassion for people, but I will say this. One of the biggest lessons I have learned is that if we just united and stood together, a lot of us, just like your husband, people saying, I didn't really feel comfortable with this. I didn't want to do this, but I was forced to. And I was reading the book Nonviolent Communication, and it's a really interesting nuance. We say things, we use language to deny responsibility, and we don't even realize we're doing it. And going back in time, there's this great story of the Nazis in Germany, and the soldiers, they had this talk. They called it Bürokraties is what it was. And they called it Amtsprache is what it translated to in German. And Amtsprache was the Gestapo, or if you ever asked a Gestapo soldier, like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
They would say, superior orders. We were told to, just following orders. It's the mandate. It's the law.
Yeah.
And when we start to do that as society or as people, think about how you do it in your marriage or just in your life as you make choices. You say, oh, I have to do this. Yeah. I had to hit my son because he ran into the street. I have to give good grades because the school district will fire me if I don't.
Yeah.
And the reality is you don't have to do anything.
Right.
You choose to hit your son because he ran into the seat. You choose to give good grades because you want to keep your job. So we all need to be, I think one of the big lessons is we need to be very careful on how we're using our own language on a day-to-day basis and how that might be kind of giving up responsibility for our own actions. And that's number one. And then number two, like what you mentioned is, man, we are so much more powerful, guys. We are so much more powerful when we are united and we stick together. One of my favorite phrases is, fear is contagious, as we know, and we saw over the last 2 to 3 years. But so is courage. Courage is contagious too. And when one person stands up, man, we see movements create. Just like Rosa Parks. That was one person, guys. She was a simple seamstress. She was a nobody. She wasn't a leader, politician, a lawyer, a doctor. She was a nobody. But her one stand created movements, changed laws, and we wouldn't be where we are today without someone like a Rosa Parks. So there you go.
Yeah. Wow. It just gave me goosebumps. Did you, after you were making all these appearances, did any of your former coworkers reach out to you?
Several of them did. And honestly, they were just proud of me. They were happy. They knew that I was a voice for them. And they all said that, like, wow, thank you for standing up for the establishment and saying the things, Joel, that we can't say. We would love to say, but we still work in this environment and we're not allowed to. So thank you for being our voice.
So now that there's all these lawsuits, are you a part of that lawsuit since you were fired because of saying no?
Oh yeah, you better believe it. I'm a fighter. I'm not going down without this. And I don't mind. Listen, I think I've given up a lot of the anger that I might have had towards them. But I will not let these dictators or tyrants off the hook. I think they need to be held accountable for their actions. And so lucky enough for me, I was able to get in contact with a lawyer, and about 140 of us are filing. And till this day, like you said, all these people are winning lawsuits all around the world, not in San Francisco. They refuse, even though they dropped the mandates, they refuse to offer me my job. It's quite silly. But, one of the things I've learned too is these so-called quote unquote petty tyrants that we learn to hate in our lives,
right?
You'd actually start showing gratitude to them because they will make you more powerful. You will learn so many lessons from these petty tyrants. And so learn from these petty tyrants, give grace to them, give thanks because they're teaching you some lessons that you would never learn. If I didn't go through these struggles, where would I be the last 2 years? I mean, it's helped create my own movements in my own life and family. It's led me to create, the best-selling book that I wrote and all these other things, including connecting with you. So, man, I'm so grateful for the petty tyrants.
You are making waves out there. I mean, I see you all over, and just even like your social media, your Instagram is very inspiring and very just like motivating for me. And I know you're not speaking to me, like you're speaking to more men, but I'm just like, yes, I love it. And so do you think you'd be where you are today if it wasn't for what like just saying no and standing up for yourself?
Definitely not. Definitely not. Because one of the biggest lessons too I've learned throughout this whole process is this idea of surrender. And, it's one of those airy-fairy concepts that everybody tells you about. You read about in these books. And you're like, oh, yeah, I need to accept things as they come. And life is made for us, not to us. And these are all great quotes. But it's another thing to actually live it and wake up with fear that how am I going to make it another day? How am I going to put food on the table for my family? How am I going to pay my mortgage? There's a lot of surrender that happens. Another thing that I came across in this journey is Wayne Dyer, one of my favorite motivational speakers who's no longer with us. But he was talking about this idea of anytime, and he was referencing the Kabbalah. And if anyone's religious, just take this for the lesson. Don't get too much into, well, I thought he was Christian. No, just listen. There's lessons everywhere from anywhere we learn. Absolutely. But he said from the Kabbalah, there's a lesson where anytime someone was about to reach greatness, they had a massive fall.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of makes us all, it makes me smile knowing like, oh, this was my massive fall. Like in order to get to the next level, I had to have this massive fall. I had to experience surrender so that I could be a better teacher, a better father, better everything.
Yeah.
And so these moments, you know, really, they make us. And we see that throughout time. We never see anybody, there's no one that like made it because it was just, they had everything given to them. Very rarely. It's the struggle, it's the difficulties that really makes a person who they are. So this is just one of those other moments for me.
Yeah. I think when you endure the struggle and, you know, reach that level of success that you're looking for, you have built up a tolerance that not a lot of people can understand. I've been on the struggle bus a lot, so I completely get it. And you know what? When things are looking very hard, and I've said this often on the show, that there's something great on the other side of that. So you're getting ready to level up. And so I love it. I totally agree. Let's talk about your upcoming 3-month program for first responder fathers.
Yeah. So I am super excited. And again, guess what? This did not get birth from, oh, I'm just such a great dad. And I know all the answers to being a great dad and a great husband. No, it did not. It came from a place of pain, you know. Here I am, life coach, almost 10 years, holistic health coach. I'm a guy, listen, Wayne Dyer, Tony Robbins. I've been to all the seminars, guys.
Yeah.
I read all the self-help books. My wife is big into child development. She has me read all the kids' books on parenting. But still, even with all of that said and done, I was struggling in my marriage. I can count at least my wife. I know she's probably said to me at least 6 times, should we get a divorce? Like that has come out of her mouth, the D word. And, you know, I have 2 beautiful boys, 9 and 6, but man, I've had so many moments where they would kick me, spit on me. I mean, I would leave the house, and these kids, like, I didn't spank them. You know, they were never abused. So you just think like, and how many parents and, you know, do you know, or fathers, and they're like, man, you're like, that guy's a good guy. Like he gives them everything they need. They're in a wholesome environment. Why are these kids so rude or disrespectful? Why is he dealing with these issues, you know?
Yeah.
And I had to go deep. And it was probably about 2 years ago too, where, like I said, I've gone to multiple coaches and hired multiple people and done this work, I thought. And my wife said again, Joel, you need help. And I'm like, no, I don't. You're the problem. I'm like, if only you, I didn't tell her this, but I thought only if you need to level up, you need to read some more books, you need to develop more. I've done as much as I can. It's not my fault that you're acting this way and the kids are behaving this way. It is not my fault. I've done everything. And she didn't buy it. She's like, nope, you need to get help. So guess what? I went out and hired another coach, and I did it, Deanna, to spite her, because I wanted to show her that even by me hiring another coach, I want to prove to you it's not my fault. It's actually your fault. And lo and behold, through this journey, I realized I was the problem. And that the reason why my family was not where it needed to be, my marriage and my kids, this respect that I wanted from them, was because I was not a leader in my household. I was not the leader of the home. I might be a leader on social media. I might be a leader in the police force, at work. But in my own freaking home where it matters most, I was not a leader. And I was giving them half of what they deserve. And so when I rearranged their needs and the priorities of my family came first, and I was intentional about what I want, just like anything in life, when you're intentional about what you're going to do, man, things happen, things unlock, right? You start to see all these changes. And so I had this aha moment. I was just like, man, this is, I need to share this with the world, because again, I thought I had it all figured out and I didn't. And now I don't want to say I have it figured out, because I don't. Being a good parent or being good at anything takes daily work and consistent action and commitment. So I'm still have to work on it, but I feel like I can save so many men, especially in the first responder, police officers, firefighters. I get that kind of work. I know what the stress does to your body, and how most of us, by the way, just by the very nature of the job, I think there's something attractive, like built in our DNA to be that warrior. We're very good. I know as a police officer, I'm very good at detaching emotionally from scenes. And I have to be able to do that to survive. I can't be crying and breaking down on a shooting scene when you need me. Or someone, like one of the most actually traumatic scenes I went to was a suicide in San Francisco. I mean, that was like heart-wrenching. That was worse than a shooting that I've had to be involved in. And so what I realized is that first responder men are probably dealing with this more than anybody. And we know because the divorce rate for first responders is way higher than the normal population. So I want to save people the grief that I had to go through 11 years in a marriage. I wish I'd figured this out 11 years ago. I wish I'd figured this out before my marriage. It would have made me such a better person, husband, father, everything. And I know I can do that for people in just as little as 3 months. That'll get things going, at least jumpstart you in the right direction.
Yeah. Do you think, and I understand because my husband is a first responder, and it's very different being with a first responder. It's like for any women that are listening to this or anybody out there, it is very different being in a relationship with someone who's a first responder. Do you think that as someone that is out there taking charge on the streets, that when they come home, they want to just completely disconnect from that and not have to run the household, so to speak?
Yeah, one of the biggest issues for first responders and women, what I've learned is there's obviously the polarity of masculine and feminine. And one of the big things from the feminine, your divine feminine, you actually want a man to take charge, be the leader in your home. And many first responders, guess what? We are tired of making decisions. We make decisions all day. People call 911 so that we can solve their problems and make decisions for them because they can't. It's gotten out of hand. We make decisions all day long, and then we come home and we're asked to make more decisions, and we don't want to. Yeah. And so we relinquish that to the wives, unfortunately. And you'll hear a lot of first responders say, I don't care. Where do you want to eat? I don't care. Whatever you want. And I was that way. And I was also, I think it was just my upbringing as a kid as well. I wanted to seem to be the nice guy. I think a lot of first responders have that attitude too. What I've seen in just our general makeup is we want to be the nice guy, and we fall into this nice guy syndrome trap. And so we don't want to rock the boat. We just want to keep everything kosher. And so we don't want to make the decision.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, we're constantly just being like, I don't know, whatever you feel like, you do what you want. And we become emotionally detached. And that is a huge turnoff, guys. By the way, women don't like that. They want to see the man make decisions. And there's a great quote by Teddy Roosevelt, and I don't know if I'll get it right, but he said something to the extent of a bad decision. I'm sorry, like a no decision is like the worst thing you could do, but a bad decision is better than a no decision because at least you made a decision and you figure it out. You can at least, from that point on, you can iterate, but you can't iterate from no decision.
Yeah.
So
something that I've noticed is that, when he comes home, when he works long hours, like you, as you know, crazy hours. So, I mean, you men that are capable of doing the work that you do, I know that you don't do it anymore, but still you've done it. And it's just, you have got a different makeup than other people out there. And so the amount of sacrifice that you make to be out there in the street, to keep the people safe and to make decisions for them, I've noticed that my husband does not like conflict at all, like between us, which is fine because I'm very stable. I don't like conflict either. But in the beginning, getting to know each other, there was some conflict, and he wanted nothing to do with it. He was like, I'm done. And I'm like, what? I'm like, well, I thought you said you love me. Why do you want to just leave, bounce as soon as there's an issue? Like, let's work it out and talk about it. Yeah. Now we're fine. Obviously, we're on the same page. We understand each other. I understand him more because of what he does. And that conflict piece, I think, is the part that, you are dealing with so much of it on the streets. When you come home, you don't want any of that. And so I think as a significant other, that you have to be a little bit more understanding and just kind of let your man relax a little bit, or, whomever relax a little bit when they come home, and allow them to kind of recharge before you step into like your normal routine with each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's difficult, right? Because men also have been asked to carry more load than ever before, right? We're being asked to go do this really difficult job and then come back and raise a family. Whereas back in the day, you would see men go to work, and then what happened? Women, in typical, this is the early, 1900s, women took care of the kids, they made dinner. And now it's not like that. Women can go out and make their own amount of money and make more than men if in some professions. And so the expectation is even higher for men. Like, hey, you need to even do more, raise the kids, be a good dad, and serve the wife, And so I think there's a lot of pressure on men to kind of figure out how do we navigate through that balance. And then, like you said, there's that conflict. I can totally relate to that. My wife is Latina, and when there's this conflict, she likes to talk about it, raise her voice. I'm not that way. I'm just very passive aggressive. My voice kind of drops down. I don't want to fight. I like to walk away. And That's not good also. Again, it's a leadership factor. And the reality is your woman is testing you. Can you hold that pose? Can you hold her in all her glory, even when she's at her worst? She's actually testing you, is what I've learned. And so now I look at the challenge. I look at it a little bit differently. But you're right. Men like to go in their cave is kind of the idea. They like to go in their cave and recharge. And sometimes that's why we go to the next room, because we need a second to think. And I know, like, my wife would walk into the other room bombarding me with all these questions. And I'm like, I can't handle this. Like, it's just too much for my nervous system. Now I've developed strategies and tactics that I know exactly how to deal with it, whereas before I just wasn't equipped with it.
Yeah. Which leads me into your upcoming 3-month program. And so it's really to help these first responder fathers build up how they show up in all areas of their life, like you learned to do. So can you talk about what this looks like for anyone that's listening or interested in, encouraging our first responders to sign up for this?
Yeah. So I think the big thing is what we've already talked about. So what some of the big we're going to talk about, like, some of the main pillars are going to be obviously your marriage, right? Yeah. How do we also fortify an amazing connection with our kids? Because I don't think many dads, then there's, how do we discipline this kid? How do we discipline our kids? Yeah. How do we also just build lifelong connections with them? And I know that was one of my biggest issues. And what we were seeing is, again, my kids spitting on me and hitting me. And again, these kids never...
That's not happening anymore, is it?
No, but they never got spanked in their life, right? So it's like, we're like, that's something you might think of like an abusive relationship, but it's not. And the more dads I've talked to, that actually happens quite regularly. And I thought I was alone in that. So that's also a big part of it, being around a community of other men. And we need that. And that's something I've learned from being in multiple men's groups, is we need that community, other men sharpening our sword. A lot of us don't do well in talk therapy, and a lot of us don't do well talking to our wives about these problems. And so having other men that are strong men that we can bounce these ideas off of is going to be really, really valuable. So of course, with my background in life coaching and health coaching, there's going to be a lot of physical, mental, and emotional support as well, because I think that's really important. And then again, creating the habits and leadership framework that you need so that you can go out every day and do this on a repeat basis. That's going to be really key.
Yeah. And managing that conflict when they come home, so it's not so overwhelming from coming, like, working and then dealing with on the street and then coming home. And, I would think that is going to be very, like, priceless for anyone that's a part of this group.
Yeah, one of the things I hear from first responder men all the time is, Joel, how do I balance work-life balance? Yes. How do I do that? I don't that is the number one question I get. And I'm here to tell you right now, you want to know the answer? There's no such thing. There's no such thing as work-life balance. I've tried to create it myself. I've tried to compartmentalize work and life and relationship and health. It's not possible. They're all one thing and they all bleed into each other. So stop trying to control any of it, okay? But focus on your priorities. What are your values? What are your top priorities? When you start to organize your priorities and you start to put other people's needs in front of your own, you will start to see magnificent changes in your relationship. And then it's going to be a consistent action and commitment to show up daily and do it again. Most men can't do that because they think, oh, like, I got it now. I'm this enlightened dad. I'm in this enlightened husband. Like, I did this one thing. Yeah, you did it once. That's great. Now you got to keep doing it. And that's where you really start to see things change and manifest in amazing ways. It's that compound interest effect.
I love it. So this is starting in October.
And the beginning of October, we should be launching this program. There's going to be like a 3-day challenge to get guys revved up and just get them in action and get them just moving. Even just doing the challenge is going to be amazing.
What kind of challenges are they?
So I can't give you all the details, but the 3 days, there's going to be specific topics each day. It'll be like an hour each day. You can join me live. And we'll go over some of the big ones I think that are really, hitting men. Is one I see is obviously how do we balance that work-life balance? That's number one. Communication. I always see that as a big breakdown. How do I communicate with my wife? We're so different. How do I communicate with my kids? Like, we're so different. Yeah. So how do we communicate strategically? That's going to be a big one. And then habits, the daily habits. What are the daily habits that are going to give you the most bang for your buck? I think if men just did that, they'd get 90% of the results, or 90% of their problems would probably go away. Yeah. And then there's the other 10% that we can really, like, take you to the next level. But just being really dialed in with your habits, you'd be amazed at how much can shift.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you're planning on meeting twice a week? Is that what you said?
Yeah, most likely we're going to be doing AM and PM calls twice a week. So there'll be a chance for everyone, no matter what shift they're on.
Okay.
And then there'll be weekly check-ins as well as some type of, kind of mastermind call where we're all going to get together once a month and connect. There'll be guest speakers and stuff like that, including myself doing trainings and workshops.
Awesome. And where can people find you, connect with you, and learn more about signing up for this amazing program?
So right now, I don't have a landing page set up, but go to joelevancoaching.com. You can sign up to my email list. I have a free first responders group on Facebook called First Responder Fathers. Look for that, Joel Evan. I think it's the only one. So sign up for that. And I'm adding more and more men. We're getting a lot of men in there, and I'm doing weekly trainings there. So go there or just connect with me on Instagram at Joel Evan Coaching. That's a great spot. That's really me. If you shoot me a DM or something like that, it's really me. And I will get back to you.
Excellent. You guys can put those links in the show notes. So if you connected with what Joel is sharing and offering, if you know a first responder, father, husband that needs something like this, do not hesitate to share the link, or at least go ahead and follow Joel on social, or yourself go follow him as well. And check out his podcast. Joel, this is the part of the show. As you know, I always like to ask for last words of wisdom or advice. What do you leave with us today?
I think, one of my favorite quotes by Nisargadatta is, "Nothing in my world ever goes wrong." And that has been a mantra for me over the last 2 years, as you know, from everything that I've gone through. And it just makes me kind of smile every time I say it, just because we attach so much to our bodies, and I'm going through this physical pain, this ailment, this mental anguish, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the more you start to realize that's just your ego and that you're so much more powerful from that, there is a spirit in you that is way more powerful and will live forever, even when this physical body dies.
Yeah.
You start to realize, like, nothing in my world actually goes wrong. It might go wrong in my body, but my body's not who I am. I'm a spirit. I'm a soul that lives forever. And so that quote, nothing in my world ever goes wrong.
I love that. Well, Joel, thank you. It's great to reconnect with you. It's great to update the audience with everything you got going on. I'm excited to hear how you change and create more elite fathers and husbands of first responders. And I can't wait to see how that goes. So thank you so much.
Thank you, friend.
You're welcome. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Radulescu with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. As always, don't forget to subscribe, follow, rate, review, comment, share, all those good things. And I'll be back soon with more dynamic guests.